All right, we are back. Chapter 18 of Out of My Mind, and Melody has just learned about the quiz team, which is the meat of this story. All right, after school that day, I was grumpy and mean. Mrs. V had prepared a new stack of word cards for me. Penny was wearing one of Mrs. V's turbans, and she looked ridiculous. Plus, she kept singing some stupid baby song at the top of her lungs. I took my arm and swept the whole pile of cards on the floor. "Who put salt in your Kool-Aid, Miss Thang?" Mrs. V said. She did not pick up the cards. Penny stopped singing and stood there blinking at me. I switched the Meditucker to off and looked away. "Fine, be like that, but you're going to pick up every one of those cards." I stuck out my lip and stared at the wall. Penny reached out and shook my arm. I tugged it loose. She didn't seem to care about singing, and she started singing again. "Happy, happy, happy, clap your feet, happy, 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 blow your nose, happy, sappy, pappy, bippity boop, bapa, jump, jump." She jumped, she stomped her feet, then she sang the song again and again. She was really getting on my nerves. I wished she would just shut up. Talking all the time, walking all the time, jumping and bouncing and singing. Just quit it. Just for one moment, stop. But she wouldn't. "Hi, Dee Dee," she said. She put her doodle on my tray. I pushed the tray on the floor. "Doodle, Dee Dee." She picked up the stupid, raggedy thing and put it on my tray again. I knocked it off again. "Leave me alone," I want to scream. Penny was used to things falling off my chair, so she couldn't know that I was being just plain horrible. The third time she put the doodle on my tray, I swept it off with such a force that my arm brushed Penny's head. She toppled onto the floor and fell over. She looked at me, a surprise on her face, grabbed a doodle, and went to Mrs. V in tears. "What's gotten into you, Melody?" Mrs. V asked when she rocked Penny in her lap. How could I explain? I didn't want to cry, but I did. I turned my wheelchair so it faced the wall just as the phone rang. Mrs. V looked from the phone side, got up to answer it. "Oh, hello, Catherine." "Catherine?" I turned my chair slightly to listen better. "Out of sorts," Mrs. V said. "Well, as a matter of fact, she does seem a little mopey today." "No, I take that back. She's downright monstrous." Mrs. V caught my eye and made that funny face again. I just glared at her. "I'm not surprised she got all those questions right. That child is brilliant." The teacher said, "What?" Great, now everybody would know. Just thinking about it made me feel like pond scum again. In front of her classmates? How did she react? Never mind, I already know. She's sitting here looking like one of those blowfish we saw at the aquarium, all puffed up and spiny. That's actually kind of how I felt. "Thanks for calling me, Catherine. Yes, please call her parents this evening also. I'll be sure to talk to them too, but I want you to talk to them. I'm going to work on this problem right now." With that, she hung up the phone, sat Penny down on the floor, and put her hands on her hips, and turned. Everyone looked at me. I want to read what the principal said, or the teacher. Oh, I remember now. The teacher said, "If Melody Brooks can get all these questions right, then my questions must not be difficult." Yeah. Okay, so Mrs. V says, "So you aced the quiz and then bombed the follow-up?" She said with trying to decorate her words. Why did she sound mad at me? I looked up in surprise. "He hurt my feelings," I typed. "So what?" Mrs. V spat back. "Kids laughed. Even Rose," I typed. It was true, though I could hardly admit it. Even Rose covered her mouth to stifle a little bit. "Did you get the highest score in the class?" Mrs. V asked. "Yes," I typed. "Did Catherine help you in any way? Even a little?" No. Then let's get started. Started on what? I asked, a little confused. On your study plan, you and I are going to practice, prepare, and push. I'm going to quiz you, you're going to answer, and we're going to learn geography, science, math, thousands of little tidbits of information. She sounded excited. Why? I asked carefully. You know how those athletes get ready for the Olympics? They swim early in the morning and late at night. They run around the track for hours and hours without a crowd to cheer them on. I can't run very fast, I typed, and then I grinned at her. Maybe not, but you've got the fastest, strongest brain at that school, and you're going to try out for that quiz team next week. They won't let me be on the team, I typed slowly. Oh, yes, they will. They'll want you. They'll need you, Melody, and you're going to be their secret weapon. You think? I know. Now, let's cut all this fake feeling for you're sorry for yourself, and let's get started on studying. We have 1 week. I'm the coach. You're my athlete. Get ready to sweat. Sweat stinks, I told her with a laugh. So let's get stinky, she said. You're going to need every single one of those cards. I knew not to argue. She took me out of my chair, set me on the floor, and left me in the room while I pulled the cards out of the messy pile. Penny did help. Then Mrs. V put me back in my chair, and we got to work. She was going to be a tough coach. How is this test set up? She asked me. A, B, C, D, I tapped. Multiple choice. Wonderful. Piece of cake for you. I wasn't sure about that, but I didn't disagree with her. She went to her computer and found a web page that listed every U.S. state and capital. Did those in school, I told her. Great, well, we should do them again. I fake groaned. Mrs. V then looked up the capital of all the major countries in the world. Gee, there sure are a lot of countries. But once she read them out loud to me, all the info stuck in my head. What's the capital of Hungary? She demanded. I knew the answer was Budapest before she even gave me the choices. A, Accra, B, Berlin, C, New Delhi, D, Budapest. I pushed D, of course. Mrs. V didn't stop to cheer me. She kept going. I correctly answered Tokyo was the capital of Japan. Addis Ababa was the capital of Ethiopia. Ottawa is the capital of Canada. And Bogota is the capital of Colombia. She quizzed me until my dad came to pick us up. As Mrs. V stuffed Doodle and some unused diapers down Penny's bag, she explained briefly what had happened at school and that we were already started studying. Are you sure? Dad asked and glanced at me. Maybe we're just setting up her for failure. She might be even worse. She might be hurt even worse. I am absolutely positive, Mrs. V insisted. Melody, can she stay a little longer to study? I'll give her dinner and I'll bring her home in a couple of hours. That will give you some one-on-one time with Penny. You cool with that? Dad asked me. Yes, 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 I typed. I want to do this. Go for it, Melody, Dad said. He gave Mrs. V a thumbs up and left with Penny. After dinner, we moved on to science. I learned that the bones in my body are my femur, my tibia, my patella, my fibula, and why can't they just come up with something easy like knee bone or skinny leg bone? But I memorized them all. The study of insects is called entomology, Mrs. V said. That gives me an idea. Let's learn all the words that end in ology. I put my hand over my head and pretended to groan. But deep inside, I'm pretty jazzed. Which word means the study of words and their meanings? A, bibliography. B, archaeology. C, histology. Or D, lexicology. I thought for a minute. I knew she was trying to trick me. Histology sounds like history, but for some reason I think it has to do with skin. And bibliography has to do with books, not words. So I typed the letter D. This time, she did cheer. Let me get you home now, Melody. Top athletes need their sleep. We'll do some more tomorrow. I grinned at her, tired, energized at the same time. and Mrs. V had called Catherine and explained the situation to her, told her to stuff the information in my head along with the macaroni at lunch. So the next morning, Catherine, of course, jumped right in. While we were in room H5, Catherine looked at me with the earphones. She hooked me up with earphones. I listened to an old audio cassette on volcanoes. It was scratchy and skipped a little, but it gave me some information. Volcanoes were named for some Roman god named Vulcan. I've never figured out that one myself. I found out about lava and ash. I learned about how the whole city of Pompeii got covered up with when Vesuvius erupted. Surprisingly, it was interesting stuff. I listened to tapes on Australia and Russia and constellations and planets. You learn anything from these oldies but goodies? Catherine said. Info always good, I type. I feel you, she said. Are you still upset about what happened in Mr. Deming's class? Deleted the memory. Need room for facts. I took time to write. I took time to type. She gave me a thumbs up. I'm a little scared, I admitted. Suppose I mess up? ? You can do this, Melody, she said sternly and adjusted the earphones. You certainly have enough smarts to be on that team. Go away while I take the test, I typed. Keeps Claire quiet. Gotcha, Catherine said. She held up her hand to slap my palm. High five. It wasn't much of a slap, more like a mushy grab, but we were on the same page. Except for lunch and recess, I listened to tapes all day. She quizzed me on facts and dates and kings and math. That might be hard for me, but the words float easily in my head, but numbers seem to sink to the bottom like rocks. I don't know why. Math is hard. Let's do it again, Catherine said gently as she mixed the math problems up. She mixed a math problem up about trains and their speed. Nobody rides trains anymore. Who cares? But she kept at it until it made sense to me. I discovered that if I make numbers into a picture story in my mind, the answers could come out. I changed the figures to words. Bingo! Magic. Instead of going out for inclusion classes, I shook my head and told Catherine I don't want to go. I want to study. Evidently, I wasn't missed. Nobody sent a frantic message to H5 wondering why Melody wasn't in class today. Nobody peeked their head in the door to see if I was absent or sick. Nobody seemed to care at all. Chapter 19. This week zipped by. I studied at school every day with Catherine. After school, every day with Mrs. V, and every evening at home as well. I reviewed word cards from all the levels on my board. I practiced spelling long words and matching facts and dates. Dad asked me questions about economics and retail management and sports. I swallowed it all. Sometimes I sit in my room and I just type in new sentences for Elvira to say, one letter at a time. It takes hours, but once every entry is in, all I have to do is push one button and the whole sentence can be spoken. Amazing. I guess the question I get asked most is, what's wrong with you? People often want to know if I'm sick, or if I'm in pain, or if my condition can be fixed. So I prepared two answers. One that's polite and kind of wordy, and one is a little smart-mouthed. To those who are genuinely concerned, I push a button that says, I have spastic bilateral quadriplegia, also known as cerebral palsy. It limits my body, but not my mind. I think the last part is pretty cool. To people like Molly and Claire, I push a button. We all have disabilities. What's yours? I like that. Now it's the Saturday before the tryouts, and Mrs. V and I are sitting outside of her front porch. I'm wearing a light jacket. It's one of those rare, warm February days. And I wean to hear the little bud say, wait, it's gonna snow next week. Stay put for another month so that the flowers don't pop up yet. We watch wisps of clouds hover over us. A canary-colored goldfinch is a canary-covered. I have to start this again. I'm sorry. A canary-colored goldfinch is perched on the railing, looking at an empty bird feeder dangling above it. If it could talk, I'll bet he'd ask for a thistle on a warm day like this. What would you do if you could fly? Mrs. V asked. Is that on the quiz? I typed. I think we've studied just about everything for now, Mrs. V chuckles. I'd be scared to let go. You'd be afraid to fall? Mrs. V asked. No, afraid it wouldn't feel good, so I'd just fly away. You are a bird, Melody. You will fly on Monday when you take that test. I heard our front door slam, and I waved to Mom and Penny as they wander over the porch. Butterscotch, clearly happy to be unleashed, bounds next to them. Penny walks with such determination, her face altering between frowns and smiles as she concentrates on marching between our two houses. She's wearing her puffy winter jacket and the hat of the day, blue straw thing that's scrunched up and crooked from her sitting on it too many times. Poor Doodle always drags behind her. Dee Dee, she cries, and she finally gets up to the top step. Freedom, I type, pointing at my Penny. Freedom. Mrs. Valencia nods. She understands. What a glorious day, Mom says. You think we're done with winter? More cold coming, I type. You're right, but this is a nice preview, Mom says. How's the study progressing? Butterscotch rests at the bottom of the steps. I swear that dog looks like he's smiling. Good, I say, with a Medi-Talker. Violet, you're amazing, Mom says. The time and effort you've put into teaching her and getting her ready for this test, you must have taught her 1,000 words, at least. Nobody seems to be amazed that Penny is soaking up and learning thousands of words, Mrs. V says. Melody is no different. Mom nods in agreement. I know you're right, but it's just so much harder for Melody. No, Mrs. V says, it's harder for us to figure out what's going on in her head. I'm getting tired of them talking about me like I'm not there. So I turn up the volume of my machine and I say, let's have cookies. Cookies, Penny repeats. Mrs. V stands up. I hear you, Penny baby. Let me find us some sweets. Miss Melody here has a special place in my heart. Aw. Heartburn, I type. That gets them both laughing. Mrs. V returns a few minutes later with a plate of hot chocolate chip cookies and 2 servings of milk in a red sippy cup decorated with Disney princesses. I hate to admit it, but a sippy cup makes it easier for me to drink. Cookies! Penny screams. Mrs. V gives Mom 2 cookies on a paper towel. Mom blows on one, gives it to Penny, who proceeds to stuff the whole thing in her mouth. Look at my little pig, Penny pig, Mom says, laughing. Mrs. V breaks my cookie into segments, then places a piece in my mouth. Although I'm a caramel lover, these cookies must have been made in chocolate heaven. I swallow while Mrs. V gives sips of cool milk. Cookies smush down so great with some milk. I don't even have to try to chew. I'd love to have enough control to feed myself, but that's on my list of things to wish for along with walking. Interrupting my thoughts, Mrs. V says, what continent produces the largest crop of cacao beans, which give us chocolate? Africa, I type. She nods and gives me another sip of milk. And which state produces the most milk? California, I reply. I think you're ready, Melody, Mrs. V announces. You gonna rock it on Monday? Says Mom. Then what? I type. Then you run for president, Mrs. V says. Yeah, right, I type out. Just then, Dad pulls in our driveway. Boy, does our big old car need a trip to the car wash. I guess Chuck got off early today, Mom says. Maybe we can get an early dinner. Dad gets out of the car, stretches, and waves at us. Penny faces up to the car. Dad! She calls out, Daddy! Standing up, she looks with a devilish grin. Don't you dare, Mrs. V warns. I mean it. Penny ignores her. Go bye-bye, car! She loves to ride in the car. It doesn't matter where, the store, the post office, as long as she gets to ride in the back. Doesn't make much sense to me. She falls asleep as soon as we turn the corner. She hurriedly bumps down the couple of porch steps and then 2 more, and waiting for a reaction from Mom. She's going by herself. Penny Marie Brooks, you bring your little bums right up here right now. Her mother cries out, and Mom uses all 3 names. It's serious. Penny reaches the bottom of the steps, looks back at us, smirks, and says, Bye-bye, go see Daddy. Then, as fast as the little short legs will carry her, she bolts for Dad. Mom, of course, has other ideas. So does Butterscotch, who jumps up, gives 3 short barks, almost like Mom using all 3 names. Good dog, Mom says. Come back here, little cookie face, come back here. This child, she says to my dad, who's ambling over to us, she is an escape artist. I need 4 sets of eyes on her. She wipes the chocolate off Penny's face and nuzzles her. Good thing you've got Butterscotch, Dad says. How's my shiny copper little Penny today? Dad kisses Mom on the cheek. She takes Penny from her. Penny manages to rub the rest of the chocolate from her hands onto the front of Dad's shirt. Just what I always wanted. Chocolate-covered clothes. The napkin Mrs. V passes only smears it more. Dad just laughs. Go work, Daddy? Daddy just got home from work. Give us a break, kiddo. He hands Penny gently to Mrs. V, and then he says, How's my favorite melody? He asks me. Super, I type on my machine. Ready for your competition? Yep, I tap. Dad gets up and squats in front of me. You're going to ace that test and you're going to make the quiz team. I can tell he means it. I believe in me, and my family does too. It's the rest of the world that I'm not so sure of.